And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus on this finally Friday, August 8th, 1:07 in the afternoon. Temperatures outside right now in the 70s across much of the area, and we've seen more cloud cover move in as well. I'm Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki, along with our Ag Director Bridgette Readel. And Bridgette, what a crazy night into early this morning. What did it look like up in Hunter? Did you guys have any damage or?
No damage here, a lot of lightning, quite a bit of thunder. So I think my bigger concern is there's no two elevators that caught fire in the overnight hours. So that lightning may have been a cause. I don't think we have an official cause yet. That's just my guess
Okay.
at this point.
Gotcha. Yeah, there was, quite a bit of damage up around the Grand Forks area. In fact, check out our website, WDAYradionow.com. I posted an article on there about the severe weather, and we've got some really good video, unfortunate video, I guess you could say, from one of our listeners up there where the damage was done. They were sleeping, and their bedroom wall basically came almost crashing down on top of the bed. Just amazing video. Thankfully, they're both okay, but they had quite a bit of damage to the house, obviously. I know the National Weather Service is up there right now surveying the damage to find out if that was due to straight-line winds or if that was due to a tornado. So the National Weather Service should have some more information on that later today or for sure over the weekend. So it was just a nasty line of storms. It raced across the state. It started in the western part of the state.
Pretty fast.
Yeah, last evening, late last night, and then just blasted across the state with 50 to 75 mile an hour winds from Jamestown to Valley City as it approached the valley. The wind gusts up around the Grand Forks area were 90 plus. I know we had 60 plus here at the station. And, you know, there was quite a bit of wind damage. Not a lot around the Fargo-Moorhead. There were a couple of downed trees across the area, mainly South Fargo. But other than that, thankfully, no injuries, not a whole lot of damage here in the FM area, but, you know, a different story, as I said, in the far northern valley where they're going to be cleaning up for a while, it looks like.
And we do have some folks that are out of power again due to
Yep.
storms, trees taking out power lines and the like.
Yeah. Now, the good news, and finally, I've got some good news in the forecast, is, well, the cloud cover is helping this afternoon because if we saw enough sunshine, we were going to destabilize the atmosphere quite a bit. But the cloud cover is helping with that. And latest model runs are now keeping the majority of the storms and severe weather east into Lakes Country. I know that's not good for WeFest goers. WeFest goers are going to be right on the edge of this, so it's going to be a close call. Now, these storms will be quiet for the rest of the afternoon with temperatures in the 70s to low 80s. And then we'll see storms develop after 7 o'clock tonight, it looks like. They'll start off to the southwest of the valley and then quickly race northeastward. Now, development will be pretty close to our area, but I think the severe weather right now is going to be contained east of the valley into Lakes Country. Can't rule out one or two storms going strong to severe here in the FM area, but majority of these should be east and southeast of the FM area. So if you're in Lakes Country, DL, and point southward, you are under the gun. And timing in Lakes Country on these storms would be about 9-10 o'clock through about midnight. So it'd be late evening into about the midnight hour where these storms affect Lakes Country. And again, it's something we'll be monitoring, but the pattern has shifted a little bit where we were expecting to see more severe storms in the valley, and we don't need it. And it looks like that's going to be shifted off to the east. We also, many areas picked up about 3/4 to an inch of rain on already saturated ground, not what we need. The good news I have for you is it looks like next week, I'm not going to say we're totally dry, but I don't see any organized areas of precip. Late next week, we could have a few thunderstorm complexes come through here, but we're definitely going to warm up. We're going to see more summer heat building in next week as well. So that should help to dry things out a bit as we head Wednesday onward of next week.
I think folks will be looking for a little bit of a change of pace.
Yeah.
Now, one of those things that you might be doing is, I get it, these have been fairly destructive winds and storms that have been going on. You need to console yourself just a little bit. Might happen with a little piece of chocolate. Well, the Hershey Company says that themselves, as well as other chocolate makers right now, are not planning to raise prices for Halloween candy. Halloween in the United States is probably one of our largest times where chocolate is sold across the country. But it's not going to happen that they're going to keep those prices down for very long. So the chances are after Halloween, we're all going to see an increase in that. Why is that happening? Well, agriculturally, it's tougher to raise chocolate because we're seeing that dry conditions have really been a problem and other poor weather as well as disease in West Africa. That's where the majority of our chocolate plants are raised. And so cocoa prices have more than doubled. 70% of the cocoa plants are in the West African region. Also, a Swedish chocolatier, Coletta, told investors that they're going to be raising their chocolate prices coming up very soon. Nestle already raised the price of chocolate chips. I recently bought a bag of chocolate chips. I believe it was $4.95 for the bag.
Wow.
It's a little bit more than most of us remember.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a bit.
And and Swiss chocolatier Lindt has said that they've also had to raise their prices by about 15% to cover some of the concerns that they have with current chocolate pricing. So agriculturally, we're having a little difficulty, you might say, with what's going on in the regions where we primarily have chocolate. So my sweet tooth and yours will all be suffering until this gets a little bit better. Sorry to see it, folks.
And hey, at least we're not getting our chocolate from overseas, because with the tariffs, I heard overseas chocolate is going to really shoot up.
Well,
So
that's where a lot of our chocolate's coming from
uh,
is overseas,
I
right?
think,
Because we have at Nestle's, or excuse me, Hershey in the U.S. still has to buy a lot of their cocoa powder from overseas.
was it Swiss chocolate? There was one country in particular. I don't know if it's
Like
Switzerland or
Lindt, yeah, Lindt is a Swiss chocolatier, and they're a
okay.
pretty big provider. Yeah, they've and tariffs will definitely impact all of the things that we are doing, and so do continued transportation costs and the cost of production, and especially with supply being low because of weather, demand being up, that influences our pricing as well. Those are some of our economics that affect us in a number of other crops too.
Right. So, well,
Well,
that will hurt the
interestingly
sweet
enough,
tooth.
it will hurt the sweet tooth. Ukraine is currently sitting on a terrible quality for wheat. So, after having a conversation here about an hour ago with a grain originator from Michigan, she's very hopeful that we're going to see the price of wheat rise over the next couple of months as they get into their harvest and find their quality was much poorer than expected. If that's the case, that gives everybody a chance to have a much better price on their wheat later this year. Fingers crossed. Now we need the water to drain away and soon so we can get that wheat out of the fields and hopefully none of the quality was affected so we can go ahead and harvest a great crop and then recoup some price with it as well. A lot of people call it poverty grass. I still love wheat, you guys. Don't trap me down on raising my wheat. I'm pretty
Right.
happy with it. Yes, that makes a big difference in my world.
Now, with all this rain, I know you mentioned the other day, Bridgette, this could have an effect that, well, it has an effect if you're on hay and, with the wet conditions. What else is this negatively impacting with all the moisture we've had recently?
One of my first phone calls yesterday morning was, "Oh, what can I expect when it comes to my grain quality if my cobs are underwater right now?"
Mm,
And that's gonna be poor. Also, when plants have to sit in water like this, you've got soybeans that have already flowered, they've set their pods. When that plant is not actively growing, and you can't actively grow when you're standing in water, then you're not going to have pod fill, which means you're going to have lighter test weight. You're not going to get as big of beans. You won't get the bushels that you need come harvest. Last night there was a sunflower field down by Horace that got knocked down. When you have plants that are knocked over because the ground is waterlogged, the wind came along, not all those plants are going to get back up, so to speak. And
hmm
now you're going to have a lot more loss off the header when you're trying to be combining out in the field. There's a number of factors here. Wind at this stage, wind and heavy rainfall at this stage of the game is not helpful. It's great to get a little bit of rain. It really is. 7 to 9 inches, bit more than
Yeah.
expected, folks. So
Yeah.
we got to be careful with that. The amount of rain we've had. So we'll see how that starts to affect the quality once combines are rolling more frequently. Right now, they're just starting in the barley and wheat.
And I think the good news is over the next couple of weeks, and I'm not saying we're not going to get any rain, but over the next couple of weeks, according to the LRC, we're going into a quieter part of the cycle, and we're going to warm up too. So the heat and the drier weather should help out a little bit, hopefully.
Yeah, reduce some humidity to prevent some of those storms from building would probably be a good answer
Right.
right now.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt.
Absolutely. So, interesting discussion that we're going to have today is with our guest. His name is Grant Jones. Grant comes to us from Nebraska. He is part of the Chundy Land and Cattle Company and Champion Shrimp. They're not Olympic champions, I don't think, but I think this is one way to say that Grant is very active in raising surf and turf on his operation. So we'll have more
Hmm.
to come when we visit with Grant today. Please be sure to send us your questions. You can reach us on the JLA Insurance phone line. You can email us ag or weather at flyfamily.com. And we hope that you're watching on our live streams, Facebook, YouTube, and Acres TV, where we're found under WDAY Weather and Ag in Focus. Subscribe, follow along. We'd love to have you as part of our conversations on a daily basis. We're going to listen to the update from the American Ag Network with livestock reporting, and then we'll be back. With all of the stress of the weather that we've had, you shouldn't stress over the security of your emails and more. And if you have concerns, make sure you go to Fence Check Assessment, which is on techsupportfarm.com. Look them up, see what you need to be doing, what's good for you, and what maybe could change so that you're more protected, not only your farm, but your agribusiness as well. Again, that's techsupportfarm.com. I am excited to talk with our guest today, whose name is Grant Jones. And so, Grant, you're the guy who decided to do things a lot differently when it comes to your Nebraska ranch. Where would you like to start in giving us a little background about yourself?
Yeah, well, I guess I can give you my 30-second elevator speech that I kind of developed over Farm Bureau. But I'm a sixth generation farmer and rancher here in southwest Nebraska, just north of Hagler, right in the corner. We raise Angus and Sim Angus genetics and have an annual production sale in the third week of March. And so that's kind of our majority of our operation. We also farm a little bit, mostly irrigated. So we're always irrigating in the summertime. But this year we've had a little more rain, so it's kind of nice not to have to spend as much time irrigating. But that's kind of the gist of the operation as a whole, and then obviously we have the shrimp on the side that I brought back when I graduated from the university there in Lincoln, University of Nebraska at Lincoln in 2014, and then started that operation in 2020. On April 1st, nonetheless. So it's kind of a good April Fool's in 2020 and COVID and everything that's going on. So, but yeah, that's the gist of our operation.
Hey, Grant. Well, first I'd like to say go Big Red.
Yeah, we are.
Those are bad words up here, but yeah, I'll stick with it. What made you get into shrimp? I mean, that's not common in Nebraska for sure.
Yeah, so it just goes into wanting to diversify my operation. When I came back in 2014, I wanted to add something that was my own, I guess, to our operation. Now that kind of we've gone back, I'm like, I did not need to diversify our operation. We're pretty diversified the way we are. But hey, it's just another challenge. But it started multiple ways, and I always get the question, why shrimp? And I always answer it was because I hate chickens. Sorry. But that's actually where it started, and I just couldn't get myself to do chickens. I'm a little too far west in our state. There was a big boom in chickens kind of in the eastern part of the state when I was leaving the university there, and so that's what kind of triggered that thought. But could just never pull the trigger on raising chickens every day and dealing with that. So I kept looking, ran across an article, and I think it was the summer of 2017 in a magazine about turning old hog barns into the shrimp barns. And that was really happening in the Iowa, Indiana, and Illinois. And so from there, the idea just kind of kept growing, never left my mind. And by 2020, we were up and running on our own.
So did you just buy some old swimming pools, or what is it that became the tanks that you put up? And what I read in your article is this was an old shop, and now you've got saltwater tanks. So what's the transition facility-wise for that to happen?
So the old shop had a big door, so we enclosed it. We insulated the building because we're running at it's 30 degrees, 29 to 30 degrees Celsius is kind of where I try to run, which is about 85, I think, Fahrenheit. So it's warm in there. So we're fully insulated now. Then I set up the tanks in there. I've got 8 pools. They're round. They're just Walmart pools. They're Intex pools that literally ship from Walmart. And so I've got 8 of those set up. Get the salt here. Use my well water, mix with the salt, make the seawater that I have. It's pretty equivalent to seawater. I've actually pulled the salinity back now a little bit. But that's, I always say it's low tech, like equipment. I mean, I'm using PVC pipe fittings and, anhydrous hoses even in places. So just everything you can find on the farm at your local lumber yard, stuff like that. But it's like high tech science, and what I'm dealing with in the biofloc system. It's its own bacteria and own ecosystem that's breaking down the shrimp waste. And it also becomes actually part of their food source for them. So, like I said, low-tech equipment, high-tech science.
So, okay, is this like chickens where you have them shipped via the post office as chicks, where do you get baby shrimp to start the process?
All right, so kind of there's a few different ways, but most all of them right now I'm getting everything out of Florida. There's the nurseries or the hatcheries down in Florida. Um, there's multiple of them. I kind of source from different ones. Hurricanes can be a big disaster in that neck of the woods.
Hmm.
It just really wipes out production of PLs, which is post larvae. So I try not to use too much slang for you guys so understand what I'm talking
Thank
about.
you,
But
because I'll last,
there's
I promise.
PLs, then they come in from Florida. So one place actually ships via Southwest cargo. So they fly into Denver International Airport. I drive out there and get them. Usually I pick them up between 10 and midnight and then drive 3 hours back home and then start the acclimation process here. I actually think I'm going to get some in the next week. They ship FedEx into North Platte, Nebraska, which is only 2 hours away, and they usually get here more in the middle of the afternoon, early morning, middle afternoon. I can get them picked up and bring them home. So, but those are usually the two options. It just depends on which hatchery I'm using out of Florida.
And Grant, a lot of people in our neck of the woods aren't familiar, obviously, with raising shrimp. What's the most difficult part, you would say, raising shrimp?
And this is kind of a rhetorical kind of thing, but like just keeping them alive. No, the water is probably the most difficult. It is a challenge to keep the water where it needs to be, and that's just a lot of people. If you ask them, it's like we're guardians of the water. We're actually farming the water more than we're actually farming
Hmm.
the shrimp. Like that, we want that water to be in as good a condition as it can be. Temperature, pH, oxygen, and then just the biofloc levels that are in there. We don't want too much of it. Too much of a good thing can also be a bad thing because it also uses oxygen. So then you can't keep enough oxygen in there for the shrimp. So there's just a constant balancing act that we're trying to manage. One thing I've learned with that is I pulled back how many shrimp I'm actually running per tank. I was trying to run maybe closer to 6,000, 7,000 shrimp in my 15 cubic meter tank, and I pulled that back
Wow.
to about 3,500, and it allows that water, I guess, some wiggle room, and it's helped me to get back to the basics, and I'm continuing to grow with it. I would like to increase that someday, but I think success right now at the lower levels is still going to be better than having too many failures at the higher levels.
And who are your buyers, Grant? And are they local, or do you ship
Yeah,
out?
so mostly local. I got a lot of local production around, like customers that just want to come see what I'm doing too, and so they're coming and picking it up on their farm because they want to see what's going on the farm. That was also we tried a grocery store. It was kind of the same thing. They didn't know much about the product. We're not used to a head-on product, a
Right.
fresh product. Shrimp are kind of a gray, and they're translucent. Even when they're younger you can see the vein and everything, and so for them to not be the pink orange kind of color that we're used to, that's a cooked shrimp. I mean, it was just, it throws everybody off. So there's been a lot more in my education of consumers, and I continue to want to grow that and have more how to's and everything, just to get them comfortable with the product. And so actually I'm starting to grow. I actually just got off the phone this morning with the Department of Ag, getting some permits so I can go to farmers markets. A vendor's license was that, and an itinerant license that I have to have, and different things. I want to get into some restaurants. It's mostly just trying to get a consistent supply of the product and grow it from there. But yeah, everything's going to pretty much stay in state.
So, Grant, we have a lot of questions to come. I have made a whole list of them here because this is not like raising cattle or turning on
No.
the irrigators. So there'll be more to come when we return from our bottom of the hour news. Stay tuned for more discussion with Grant Jones. He is with Champion Shrimp and Chundy Land and Cattle Company out of Nebraska. Well, good news. Our Peterson farm seed wheat still looks good out in the field, even though it's been trying times at this point. But we thank them for the work they've done with us for Here We Grow 2025. And again, that is commercial seed that we are raising out there. It is the variety known as rolls, and we plan to harvest very soon. And also, if you, after all this rainfall, if you're unable to get in the field, but you've got work that needs to be done, and even if it's pasture ground that needs to be sprayed, look at talking to Matthew or Eleanor at Higher Drone Service out of Leonard. They would be very happy to visit with you and try to make sure that your needs are met for weed control, fungicide, and more. Well, today you can send your questions to us on the JLA Insurance phone line as we talk with Grant Jones. We're talking about his champion shrimp that he's raising in Nebraska. Yep, I said shrimp in Nebraska. It's not a regular day out there, but he does have cattle and land to go along with it. So, Grant, as I read through some of the notes for what you are doing, okay, you have a ration for your shrimp, much like you do a ration for your beef herd. What does that look like?
So that's kind of how I've started to describe it, so everyone kind of understands a little bit better. But the ration is has basically 5 different step ups is what I use. As I continue to grow them, as they get bigger, they get onto a bigger sized pellet form. At first, it's almost like a powder, and then it starts to get some consistency to it as it gets bigger. What I'm feeding there is mostly a high protein, anywhere from like 35 to 45%, 50% protein in that ration. Also, everything else is in there. There's vitamins and different minerals to help keep them healthy. Shrimp don't have an immune system, so health is a number one priority, and so they are what they eat. So we try to keep everything healthy there and add probiotics also into the water.
Is the protein like a soy meal?
Yeah, there's a lot of soy meal, fish meal, also for an attractant. It definitely has that fishy smell. You do not smell fish on the in the farm until I open up the feed bins, and then everyone gets a whiff of the fish. And they go, they're always surprised that it doesn't smell until I do that, and then they all go, oh, there's the smell. So,
There they are. Okay. And with that protein diet that they have, um, can they ever overeat? Are they gluttons? Or how tight do you regulate that in order for solid growth, but yet can shrimp get fat?
yeah, no, they can't really. Mostly what you have to worry about is I always take it back to a feedlot or cow calf, and so if you're feeding cattle in a bunker, you can call the bunks each day. You know what they ate, if they left any, if they ate it quicker than normal, so you can adjust your feeding accordingly. Well, with that, our bunk calls are harder because the water, you can't see the water. You can't
Hmm.
see through it to see if there's any feed in the bottom, so you have to search for feed. You don't know exactly how many shrimp are in there because it's hard to count that many and know, and you can't tell how many have died. So you're always playing a game of I guess guessing and trying to pull back what you do know. Something that I have learned a lot on it is we adjust feed by growth. So we're looking for a sweet part of 2 grams per week is kind of my sweet spot that I'm trying to hit. So if I'm under that, then I will add some more feed. If I'm over that, maybe stay the same. If it's getting 2.5, sometimes we'll do 3 grams a week. There you're starting to ask for problems, and those that can come into now the water quality. They're wasting feed, or you're just putting too much feed in that water that you're not going to be able to sustain your good water quality that you want. So it's just a balancing act with everything else that you're trying to do to call feed and keep it right.
So, do you have death loss?
Oh yes, sometimes more than I'd like to. But yeah,
Okay,
um,
that's fair.
you know, if my goal is always to try to be about 80-85% of what I bring in, uh, living. So having a death
Hmm.
loss of about 15-20, that's a good goal. Sometimes it's worse than that. Sometimes it's way worse than that. There's been times I've had 100% death loss. And I lost the whole tank. Um,
Uh-oh.
but yeah, it's a part of the challenge and the learning experience that we've had. Something else that I've learned on my orders, I'm either ordering 15 to 30,000 shrimp, give or take, somewhere in there, at a time. And so those are small orders. Like that's like minimum orders. And so a lot of these hatcheries are dealing with 100,000, more 500,000. So trying to count these little guys, because I consider them about the size of an eyelash when they come. They're very small.
Oh,
About see
wow.
them. So on let's say 100,000, if they're 5% off, you still have 95,000. Well, on 10,000, 15,000, let's just say 10 because I've ordered 10. If we're that far off, we're talking bigger numbers on 5%, or
Hmm.
on five
Hmm.
on 5,000 could be half of them. So however that works. So that's a little bit of the issue. I don't know sometimes exactly how many shrimp I'm getting in the challenge on such small orders.
Now,
Sure.
yeah, go ahead, Bridget.
In the farming world, talking about, let's say, 105-day corn makes a lot of sense to me, right? But what's the lifespan or the time to maturity and harvest on the shrimp?
So 120-day corn. It's about 120 days to take them from my eyelash
Okay.
size to. I always like to describe it as my hand. Oops, going this way for the videos. They're
Hmm.
going to be at least that, and sometimes just a little bit longer than my hand, and they'll be pretty good
Wow.
sized around. So I try to shoot for. I probably average about 18 shrimp per pound. And that's where the count comes from. If you're used to like the count, it's a 15, 20 count shrimp, then is what that is, versus some of your smaller shrimp where they're 25 or 30 count shrimp. So trying to raise
Hmm.
the bigger shrimp, more for the eating experience, grilling, doing fun things like that with the bigger shrimp.
And Grant, this might be asking you a question like, who's your favorite kid, if you have kids, but what do you enjoy raising more, shrimp or cattle?
Oh, oh, that is like asking that question. Let's see here. They both have their challenges. I've really enjoyed the shrimp. I love the challenge every day of the shrimp. I think still probably truly my passion is cattle and raising seed stock. I love going out into the pasture and seeing all that work paying off, and what matings are working and what matings aren't, and everything I'm doing there. But the challenge of the shrimp really bring me back to it every day, and you never know what you're gonna find. So I don't know. I probably flirted around that question just a little bit, and didn't truly answer it,
No,
but
that's okay.
that's
So I'm curious as well. You made mention in an article that you're using the same water since inception of this concept, meaning you haven't had to flush it out such as we would in maybe an aquarium or something like that. How can you do that?
it just goes back to being the guardians of the water and keeping it healthy. There's a lot of aeration in it. Um, I'm not saying that there's some water that hasn't left, but for the most part, it's all been there. Um,
Hmm.
it's just keeping it healthy, keeping the pH right, keeping it aerated,
Yep.
not letting sludge build, keeping just it's all those things. But yeah, it just hangs out there pretty much, I guess.
So when you harvest the shrimp, because I'm envisioning a big net and we're pulling them out of the tank, do you process them, like pull the vein, pull the head off, and then freeze before you ship, or how do you ship them to restaurants, or even if you'll be taking them to a farmer's market?
Yep. So I pull them out with a bigger net that I just can use in my hand, scoop them out. So as I'm getting to harvesting a tank, I'll pull all that water off and out of that tank, and I can go to another tank. I also have a holding tank that I can put all that water in while I'm going through that process. Then from there, they go into an ice bath. I get it really cold, and that's what
Hmm.
puts them down. And then I'm just continuing to keep them as cold as I can, get them packaged. I mostly package everything in 1 pound packages, and then I'm getting them into the freezer. I am not doing any processing. Um, that's a whole another can of worms that I don't really want to get into. So
Hmm.
basically, it's just like if you come to me and buy a steer from me and you take him to a local processors. That's how I'm getting by. I'm pretty much trying to just sell the shrimp live to somebody. Even it's not technically live because they don't live out of water, but that's kind of the concept. That's I'm staying in that, and then shrimp aren't USDA inspected in the U.S. Any kind of shellfish, so that's how I can get by with that too.
So what's next step? Expansion? Some sort of, now we're into lobsters or tilapia, or just it's time to maintain where we're at right now.
Mostly maintain. I'm really just honing in on survival rates. I want to just consistently be up around that 80-85%, maybe even more. Just really getting into a rhythm with that. I do have some thoughts on expansion. And one of those thoughts is more tanks, bigger tanks, just so I can maybe continue to run the same stocking density in those tanks, but I'll be able to raise more shrimp and keep it kind of simple yet that
Hmm.
way, but still be able to do more production. I think a lot of the next step is getting into restaurants, building a little bit more of that network of restaurants and consumers that want to buy the product, continuing to educate, um, what the product is and how good it is. We part of that education is that we import 95%. The last I knew of our shrimp. Into the U.S. We consume about 4.5 pounds per person, so that's a lot of shrimp, and we're importing 95% of
More
it
for
from
me,
Thailand.
actually. So.
Yeah, yeah, it is probably for me too. From Thailand and Ecuador, and they're allowed to use antibiotics and hormones that are illegal in the U.S. So it's just crazy. It's kind of typical, how we do things. We'll import products that we can't ourselves, raise or raise the same way, but it's cheaper to import them that way. Well, those all help, with the production of shrimp. Antibiotics would be huge. You could treat sickness, you could treat some diseases. Here, it's kind of, if it's a bad disease. Uh, you might lose a whole tank over a disease, different things. And I think that's some of the reasons I've lost shrimp is for that reason. So um, I just want to educate people on the type of product that it is. That this is as good a product as going to a rancher and getting you know a fat steer from them right off the place. It's fresh. It's local. And so you are paying a little bit of a premium for this product, but it's well worth it.
Oh, I think it is very well worth it. So, Grant, thank you. When you talked about education, this has been one. So much appreciated for joining us on,
No
here we
doubt.
are, August the 8th. It is the National Leave a Zucchini on Your Neighbor's Porch Day. I hope you celebrate appropriately. If you need some ammunition, I've got lots. But thank you for
Yeah,
joining us.
I think my mom does too.
Oh, great. Hey, Grant. Hey, Grant. Quick before you leave, if I've got a buddy in North Platte, he owns a car lot, Swift Auto Center. If you ever want to get a
Okay.
vehicle, he'll trade you for shrimp, I'm sure.
All right, all right. Yes, I didn't even know that. That's a local radio ad.
There you go. Grant, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. When we come
Thank
back,
you,
we're
Rick.
gonna talk about our chances for severe weather as we head into the evening and overnight hours, and we've got a traffic report of some backed up traffic on 94. We'll have more on that coming up when we come back. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus 154 in the afternoon here on finally Friday, August 8th. Again, we had a lot of severe weather this morning, and we were expecting another round of severe weather this evening. It looks like the majority of that is going to be off into Lakes Country. We can't rule out a strong storm in the valley and south, especially the southern valley, after 7, 8 o'clock tonight. And then those really ramp up into Lakes Country and more than likely will be severe, with damaging winds and hail being the main component. And that would be between about 10 o'clock and 1 in the morning into Lakes Country. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that for you tonight. We got a traffic update, though. We had a caller call in on 94. Traffic is backed up all the way from 20th Street, I believe, in Moorhead, all the way back to the 94-29 interchange. So if you're heading into Moorhead on 94, expect traffic backup. And it's been like this for, about 15 minutes, Addison, last time when our caller called in?
Yeah. It's been backed up for pretty good amount of time now.
So if you're heading east on 94, heading into Moorhead, expect delays here over the next 15 or 20 minutes or so until they figure out what's going on. We didn't get a report of any accident or no? Okay.
There's construction over there.
There
in
is
that area and
on the river.
Minnesota State line.
Yeah.
So be cautious of that. Now, while you are in your car driving and listening and thinking about what you might be doing in the next few weeks, well, one of those things would be a webinar that North Dakota State University Extension is going to be doing, and it's going to be on question, persuade, and refer. It's a suicide prevention webinar. Webinars are scheduled for August 14th and September 17th. You can register through NDSU Extension to attend. It's only a 90-minute class, but it can be very helpful, especially if you are in a small community's ambulance service, fire department, and frankly, just for yourself, for your friends and neighbors. Again, that's the QPR training put on by NDSU Extension. And if you're looking for the link to register, you can reach me, ag@flagfamily.com. Also, let's not forget that right now we're getting into harvest. Be safe out there. I've already had messages about bin entrapment. So far, everybody's been safe. It hasn't made the news because it's been small situations, but small situations can very quickly escalate into big ones. Let's not do anything that we shouldn't. Remember about lockout, tagouts when you're on the farm. Someone should know where you are. Don't enter a bin without somebody else on the ground right there with you. You should be using all the safety measures that you can. And we have interviewed folks like the grain weevil, where they talk about sending what I refer to as the grain Roomba into the bin to do the leveling for you. Or if you have grain later this season that is hanging up, that you can break that down without someone entering in the bin. Some of us are just missing the bins, right? We had a lot of wind and damage, which leads to more grain bagging going on this year. And if you're unfamiliar with how to be doing that, be cautious. Little small things can happen. In fact, I was with a friend in Minot at the prairie dinner on the prairie Tuesday night, and she was having trouble with her name tag. And I helped her, and she said, "I don't think I told you, but we were out feeding cattle this winter, and a hydraulic hose let go on the loader bucket, and it crushed my hand under the bucket." And she just now is getting out of the cast, the splint. She's doing OT, occupational therapy. Had to have some surgeries. So remember, farm accidents happen far too quickly. Let's just really be careful around harvest time, especially. You're going to have some new combine and grain cart drivers out there. Just want to make sure that everybody gets out at the end of the day very safely. That would mean a lot. More things that we want to talk about. Excuse me. One of them is that John Deere, are they changing their stance on right to repair? Sort of. They're coming out with a subscription service so that as a farmer, you can get downloads for a subscription fee, and then you're able to use that information to work on your own equipment. Also, some independent retailers are looking at being able to do a same subscription with a maximum of 10 downloads where they could take information off of that. Are you curious? Check that out. Again, that's through John Deere, and this is in defense of the discussions about right to repair, and it is a subscription fee. You might want to talk to your folks at your local John Deere dealership in order to get the firm details about that.
All right. Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us here on Weather and Ag in Focus. Again, please pay attention to the weather tonight, especially in Lakes Country after about 7 or 8 o'clock as more storms will be developing. So for Bridgette, myself, hope everybody has a great weekend. Don't go anywhere. The Jay Thomas Show with Tim Flackles coming up next.